everybody. It's Allie, and welcome to our Y&R Chat for Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. A whole week of Katherine Chancellor we had. How wonderful. We had 2 weddings, 2 wedding cakes, 2 epic arguments between Katherine and Jill. We had 2 different Mackenzies, and we had 2 times that Jack's dates left him alone at a wedding and went home. Jack was ditched by 2 different dates at 2 different weddings. First, Sharon ditched him at Billy and Chloe's wedding. And then Mary Jane Benson ditched him at Katherine and Murphy's wedding. Oh, I am just glad that at least one of the weddings, Sharon hadn't just slept with the groom the night before. Let's take a moment and imagine that. Sharon gets drunk and sleeps with Murphy the night before his wedding to Katherine. That's probably where the story would have ended up eventually. If it had gone on another 20 years. Katherine and Murphy's re-wedding in the year 2040, and the opening scene is Sharon and Murphy waking up in bed together, smoking a cigarette after their long night of passion. Oh, Murphy! Murph! The Murph! I love that man. I do. I really do. He and Katherine were like ketchup and mustard. 2 totally wonderful condiments. Totally different, but complementary to one another, like ketchup and mustard. Katherine was the ketchup, by the way, in that little combo. Katherine's the ketchup, Murphy is the mustard. But the interesting thing about Katherine and Murphy is that the story doesn't arrive at Katherine and Murphy without first arriving at Marge. Marge was first discovered in 1989 by Clint Radisson, and finding someone who just so happened to look exactly like the very wealthy Kathryn Chancellor, it was just too good of an opportunity to pass up. So Katherine and Esther, who was pregnant at the time, were both kidnapped while Marge took over Katherine's life. She was impersonating Katherine, learning how to act like her, walk like her, talk like her. She was being Katherine at Katherine's company and with Katherine's husband, Rex. Ooh, juicy, juicy. The epic showdown that we saw was from 1990 when Katherine and Marge were coming face to face for the first time. And I gotta say, Marge seemed like a lot of fun. Can you even believe that they found someone who looked exactly like Jeannie Cooper in order to fill that other role? Wow! Can we get that other lady back on the show? She was great. And she did a spot on Katherine Chancellor impression. I'm just kidding. I feel like Jeannie Cooper might have appreciated that joke. I like the idea, though, that there's just this other woman out there who could possibly step back in and play the role of Katherine. How wonderful would that be? Well, Marge was there in 1990 after Katherine and Esther escaped, but she was also there in 2008. She had made a comeback onto the scene briefly. Marge was killed in a car accident with Katherine, and then Marge was presumed to have been Katherine, having died in that car accident. Everyone in Genoa City thought that Katherine Chancellor was dead, but it was actually Marge, and that's why you saw Ashley looking so shocked to see her alive at her wedding. But the real Katherine Chancellor was alive and well. She had amnesia, and she was being nursed back to health by Murphy, who thought that she was Marge. What a small world. But I think it's very interesting that we, this week, saw the Marge arc impact that was playing out from 1990 when Katherine was confronting Marge on that Monday episode, and it played out all the way to 2009 when Katherine was marrying Murphy in the Friday episode. So we saw, as the viewers, 19 years worth of a span of a story arc in just a week's worth of episodes. How interesting and how wonderful. I loved it. I don't think that I had ever actually seen the full episode of the Marge versus Katherine showdown. I really only knew about it through a couple of clips and, of course, through legend. And I can really see why it was so legendary. Gene Cooper's performance as Katherine and Marge separately, it was so distinct. You could really tell that they were two very different personalities, and I thought she did an amazing job in both roles. I thought that Marge's accent was just really charming, and I really believed that Marge was her own person. I mean, when she looked at Katherine and came to face with Katherine for the first time and said, "Well, don't we just look like we were born out of the same bottle of ketchup?" Oh my goodness, that's why Katherine's the ketchup. Don't we just look like we were born out of the same bottle of ketchup? What the hell does that even mean? It must have been quite the soap event when Marge and Katherine finally came face to face for the first time. Some of those scenes were filmed with stand-ins, obviously, but some of it was superimposed, and you could see Katherine and Marge in the same shot, it was pretty good for 1990. I thought some of the superimposed shots looked a little fake, but it was fake, and given the time, I think it was an overall pretty good job. The special effects I thought were really great with the purse trick. I don't know if you guys noticed the purse, but there was a moment where Marge set her purse down on the table, and then Katherine picked it up from the table and waved it around angrily, and that was a really important establishing shot for making the viewers believe that these two were in the same scene. There was an item that passed through the scenes, and I thought that was really great. They look so much alike. I just don't know how Esther was able to tell the difference between them, especially in the dark. I don't know, maybe Esther was just feeling around for which one of them had the jewels on, and that's how she knew who to bonk. Yeah, I got a real kick out of Katherine coaching Esther on how they were going to escape captivity from this murderous situation where they were both surely going to die. Okay, step one, Esther, go to the kitchen and pick out the biggest, heaviest frying pan that you can find. Then cut to 4 scenes later, and Esther is in the kitchen pulling out the lightest, flimsiest Walmart Essentials brand frying pan that she could find out in the cupboard. That house looked old and creaky. You cannot tell me that they did not have a cast iron skillet somewhere under in those cabinets. Did Esther even try to find a adequately heavy frying pan? I don't know about that. I'm not sure Esther really tried her hardest. Maybe she deserved to get left behind. I mean, that was the absolute best part of the whole episode. The lights go out. We, the audience, just hear the bonk of the frying pan over someone's head. And then Katherine slips out the front door and speeds away in her limo, completely leaving Esther behind, just left her in the snow dust. Sorry, Esther. I forgot to think through that part of the plan. Hope you can fend for yourself. See you back in Genoa City. So Katherine eventually gained her life back and then decided to drink it away. Again, some more. Yes, the year of Katherines Intervention party was 2004, and I have to say, that episode looked crisp and new. I almost felt cheated. Like, I thought we were supposed to be getting a classic, and this episode looked brand new. And then I realized, okay, wait a minute, I guess it has been 16 years since then. I suppose it can be classified as classic. It was not a real uplifting episode, but Katherine was compelling as all get out. I mean, hijacking her own intervention, hiring some caterers, and turning it into a party. Great twist. I mean, here everyone was gathering thinking they were going to get the leg up on her and surprise her with this intervention, and she twisted it into a party. Ugh. It was just so many emotions and so many things. I mean, there was this deep sadness underneath of it all, but then it was also just a party atmosphere with Katherine there as the grande dame. It was a sad party. That's a good way to describe it. Kind of a sad party. I'm always happy to see Brock. I loved that Brock was there. He was at the intervention and he was officiating her wedding. So we actually saw Brock twice this week, and it melts my heart every time I hear Brock call her Duchess. It makes me feel like maybe I should force my daughter to call me by some regal name. I don't remember why he calls her that. She certainly is not a duchess. So did he just come up with that on his own? And if so, can I co-opt it? Oh, that's such a little detail of affection. That I think it adds a lot to the characterization of a relationship. Bo Kaiser passed away a few years ago, and I really did love him, so it was nice to see him. I always felt connected to him. I always felt connected to the girl who originally played his daughter, Mackenzie. The actress's name was Ashley Bashonium, or Bashowum. I don't ever know how to say her name, but I thought she was a wonderful young actress, and Katherine loved her. Katherine loved that young ragamuffin Mac, who she found on the streets. They had a very special relationship, and I think that's why it hurt almost most of all to see Mac walk away from Katherine in the end. There was something about Mac's innocence, even though Mac wasn't, she was the street smart kid, but there was something about, the purity of a granddaughter's love and admiration for her grandmother, and that Mac would ultimately also turn her back on Katherine to walk away to save, her life for her own good. Oh, there was a lot of people there. It was a who's who. Katherines Intervention was a who's who of the Genoa City elite. Jill and Lauren were both there, and that was before they were sisters. They didn't know they were sisters then. This intervention was taking place in the time span when Katherine and Jill thought that they were mother and daughter, which is how I prefer to think of them, to this day, I still think of them as mother and daughter. But I thought it was such a dramatic moment when Jill turned her back on Katherine to leave for her own good. And Katherine said something to Jill like, I always knew you'd abandon me. And the hurt in Jill's face. I thought that was interesting, and especially contrasting it with how Jill said something very similar to Katherine in Billy and Chloe's wedding episode, as she was learning that Katherine wasn't really her mother at all. I always knew you'd abandon me. What an interesting way to connect these stories together. I mean, it seems like the 5 episodes that they selected were selected for a reason, and they all came full circle by the end of the week. Liz Foster was at the intervention. That's Jill's original mother. Admittedly, I don't have a real connection with Liz, although I know many of you do. She's part of the core family of the show. But during my time of watching Y&R, Liz really mostly only stopped by for a few episodes occasionally to push forward a maternity or a paternity plot for Jill. So I don't feel like I really got to know Liz as much as a lot of the longer time viewers have known her. But it was Liz who revealed that Jill was adopted, and then years later also revealed that Neil Fenmore was Jill's biological father. But I still feel that I feel unclear about who Jill's biological mother is then. If it's not Liz and it's not Katherine, then who is Jill's biological mother? And do we even know? I wonder if Y&R failed to explore that. I don't remember that ever being resolved. Maybe someone out there can enlighten me. I would also really like it if someone would enlighten me about who the bearded gentleman at the intervention was. He was standing with Jill and Liz. Katherine, I think, called him Judge. And I was definitely watching at that time, and his face and his voice seemed so familiar to me, but I just cannot place him. Who the heck was that guy? I don't know. I think that Y&R could probably do a whole week of just Katherine and Jill feuds. I mean, this week was supposed to be about Katherine, and of course the feuds are a part of that, but I think they could do a whole week of Katherine and Jill feuds. I mean, I would like to see the episode where Katherine and Jill found out that they were mother and daughter. That would have been a good one. Or also, I would have loved to have seen Katherine and Jill fighting in the attic. I remember that was a good episode. There were so many years spent fighting over that house. I mean, they should definitely do a week of epic feuds or something. Oh, anyway, the real star of the intervention party, I think, was Katherine's rainbow sorbet caftan. Is that what you would call it? It was not a cardigan, not quite a wrap, and it definitely wasn't a sweater, not really a jacket. I don't know what you would call it, but it was gorgeous. It had this flowing fabric. It was primarily yellow, but one sleeve was red and one sleeve was green, and Katherine had this perfect white turtleneck on underneath it. She looked absolutely stunning. I could not keep my eyes off of her in this episode. I mean, she looked like a daiquiri and a pina colada and a margarita all shook up into one. And I feel that she had some sense of that when she was putting it on. Like, she knew she was going to her intervention party, and she said, I want to look like a daiquiri and a pina colada and a margarita all shook up into one delicious drink. I mean, you gotta admit, the woman knew how to dress for her own intervention. That intervention episode was a big deal. We even had special effects. Like, for instance, did you know that the gates of heaven are located in Katherine's dining room? I'm not gonna lie, I laughed out loud when those doors blew open and Rex and then Philip both showed up wearing their white heavenly attire. White shirt, white pants. It's the standard issue heaven uniform. The angels give you about 100 pairs of white shirts and white pants if you're a man and you walk through the gates. If you're a woman, you get about 100 white flowing gowns. Oh, it was very dramatic though. Katherine went to sleep and she woke up inside of this dream and the lights were flashing in the house and everything seemed like it was rattling. It would have been enough to scare me straight. It seemed like it was out of almost a horror film or something. It was definitely nightmarish. But then the doors blew open and Rex was there with his loving face and also his disappointed face. Rex was disappointed that Katherine was choosing this path for herself, and that seemed to make a really big difference to her. Rex was shot and killed in 1994. I only knew him briefly. Although I liked him, I have positive feelings about Rex. I always remember how much he loved her. He just doted on her. He loved her so much. And Jean Cooper actually said that she was so deeply saddened when Rex's character was killed that she didn't even want to go back onto the set for 2 months. She actually felt like a widow who had lost her husband. So I think that shows that Jean had a very deep love for Rex, and so did Katherine likewise. And also, Philip III came through the dining room heaven gate. Philip III is Chance's father, and also he is not dead. So yeah, that's how it was a dream though, you know. Katherine was only dreaming. He was not really dead. It turned out years and years later. Apparently Philip III faked his own death, but asked Cain to come to town to pretend to be his mother's son. It's a long story. I don't have time to get into everything this week. We'll save that one for another chat. But Philip III was someone who also made an impact at Katherine's intervention, because Philip III was reminding her that her drinking is what caused Philip Chancellor II to die. She was drunk driving the car that crashed and killed him. So she needed that wake-up call, and maybe that was the biggest one of all, because she then woke up and she came to, and Katherine realized that she was all alone. And it was by choice. One by one, all of the people that she cared about and who loved her had chosen to leave her rather than to stay and watch her die, to watch her kill herself. And she had this awakening out of this dream, and she realized that it was time. She woke up with a new resolve, realized that this was going to be the first day of the rest of her life. So be it. And it was done. There were so many screen capable moments in all of the Katherine episodes this week. I mean, I had so many screen caps this week. I had to sort things out into like 2 photo galleries. If you didn't get to see any of these episodes, oh, go to yrchat.com and look at the screen caps. There are so many, it's ridiculous. But Katherine was a woman who knew how to hold a dramatic pose, so I could not resist. She was the queen of the moment, you know. I mean, she just would give you that moment, and she knew when to be funny, and she knew when to be serious, and she was tender and touching and fierce and so much more, and sometimes just in all in one moment. I don't need these people. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. No, I don't. I mean, it was just high drama. But you know, I think the thing I miss most about Katherine is her wisdom and her self-confidence. Katherine Chancellor was one of the only people in this town who knew how to stand up to Victor Newman. At her wedding, for example, after Victor learned that Katherine had poached Neil away from Newman Enterprises and hired him at Chancellor Industries, Victor was confronting Katherine about that, and she did not apologize. In fact, she laughed in his face and said, "Come on, Victor. When was the last time you consulted me before making a business decision?" You know, I mean, Katherine did not kowtow to him. And there was just something about that presence on the show that I miss so much. I think the show needs that matriarchal position to balance us out. And maybe that's why I had such high hopes for Dina, maybe filling that role, but I mean, it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible to fill Katherine's shoes. Her fabulous, fabulous shoes. I can only hope that perhaps, just perhaps, the angels gave Katherine a very special white flowing caftan to wear when she finally stepped through the dining room doors and onto the other side. Billy Miller was a good Billy in 2009. How did you guys feel about Billy Miller and seeing him again? I mean, I think he put the lovable in lovable screw up. You know? I mean, then again, any actor can only work with what material they're given. And I have a feeling that certain Y&R writers loved Billy Miller and gave him plenty of material to work with that was good and bad. I'm not quite sure that Jason Thompson's Billy gets as much of the good, but he gets a lot of bad. But, you know, I really liked Billy Miller a lot. I think he embodied a lot of the qualities that became fundamental to the character of Billy. I mean, the look on his face when he was standing at the altar getting ready to marry Chloe because he had a child with her, and only because he had the child with her. I mean, he looked like he wanted to throw up. And not just because of the hangover. Oh, Sharon had the same look on her face. Pretty sure that Sharon was technically married to Jack on the morning that she was waking up in bed with Jack's brother. Ooh, and then Sharon standing there at the altar being Chloe's bridemaid after she just slept with the groom a few hours earlier. Oh, Sharon. Oh. Doris was right. Doris must have just known something that we didn't know yet. Because I'm also pretty sure that Sharon, at the time of Billy and Chloe's wedding, had just recently also slept with Nick at the Abbott cabin. And she didn't know yet in this episode that she was pregnant with Faith. Pretty sure there was a brief little moment of who's the father, Billy or Nick. It was troublesome days for Sharon back in 2009. Tangled web. She had her bipolar disorder, which I don't think had even been diagnosed yet. She was stealing things. She had this bout of kleptomania, which is why Phyllis was asking about those monkeys in her room. Oh, those days were a mess. Those were hard days for Sharon. I mean, and Phyllis was right for once. She was right that Sharon was stealing things. She was on to Sharon. She knew there was more going on. I mean, did you notice that 3 out of the 5 episodes had Phyllis getting up in people's faces? Blondes, too. Phyllis has a thing against blondes. First it was Christine, then it was Sharon, and now it's Abby. There's just something about blondes that Phyllis doesn't like. And Phyllis always has to be defending her relationship against these evil blondes. With Christine, she was just trying to hold on to Danny. And with Sharon, she was just trying to hold on to Nick. How cute was Nick in 2009? Oh, Nick was at his peak cuteness there. Oh, his hair was a little longer, and he was looking real slender and tan. Nick looked good there. But I don't miss those days. I really don't. I don't miss the Nick run to Sharon's rescue days. I mean, I can see why it would have been frustrating to be married to him. Nick was always running off, rescuing somebody, running off, getting somebody else pregnant. If it's not Phyllis, then it's Sharon. Nick got Phyllis pregnant when he was married to Sharon, and then Nick got Sharon pregnant while he was married to Phyllis, right? I mean, I want to look at him. I don't want to be married to him. That's funny. I think the babies came before the marriages a lot in that period, because Chloe was literally standing there at the altar with Delia. I believe that Chloe had tried very, very hard to make Cain think that he was Delia's father, before it was revealed ultimately that Billy was the father. Chloe was crazy back then. And Chloe had some crazy eyes going on back then. But I did love her little flapper wedding dress. It was very cute and stylish. I loved the way she looked. It makes me feel happy for Chloe today, knowing that she finally found a man and a family that wants her. You know, I mean, it's hard not, she was a bad girl and she did a lot of bad things, but it was also hard not to empathize with her, because that marriage to Billy was over before it started. She was fighting so hard to get him to love her and want her, but it was done before it started. Billy was only trying to do what was right by his daughter, which, by the way, was one of Billy's most redeeming qualities, his love of his daughter. And maybe in some ways when Delia died, we lost a lot of that, because Y&R doesn't focus as much on Johnny and Katie as characters. And so we don't always get to see that side of Billy, that redeeming side of Billy. I mean, he can, you know, Billy Miller, it was like he was a bad guy, but you always knew he loved his daughter. Or, no, I'm sorry, I should revise, because he wasn't a bad guy, he was a bad boy. Kind of a bad boy. But he always loved his daughter, and that was something that connected me back in with him. And maybe when Delia died, that got a lot harder. Chloe's job got a lot harder when Mackenzie walked through the door, literally the moment after she and Billy said, "I do." How's that for a dramatic moment for you? Oh, beautiful Clementine Ford. Oh, the beautiful, beautiful daughter of Sybil Shepherd. Sybil Shepherd is one of the most beautiful women ever in the world. I love Sybil Shepherd. And Clementine Ford is Sybil's daughter, and she's so beautiful too. She's not my favorite Mackenzie. There was something a little flat, I think, in her delivery. She's very sweet, and she looks really pretty, and she has a beautiful smile, but there's something underneath there that maybe is not real warm. And so she didn't quite last. I liked her, but it's hard to stack up to Ashley, the original Mac, in my mind, and probably mostly also because Ashley was the original. I mean, Billy and Mac were teen sweethearts. They were the Glow by Jabot power couple. I mean, it was all summer long, Billy and Mac. Ashley Vashonium as Mac, and David Tom as Billy. I liked David Tom a lot. I would have been happy if we still had David Tom today, but I know that's not the consensus. But Billy and Mac were love. They were teen loves. And it was total love until the twist that Katherine and Jill were mother and daughter made it so that Billy and Mac were related, and they were forced to get their marriage annulled. Ooh. I would sacrifice Billy and Mac's relationship to keep Katherine and Jill as mother-daughter. But the fact that Y&R was untwisting the mother-daughter twist at the same time that Mac was walking through that door was Y&R's way of refiring up that romance between Mac and Billy, trying to give them a fighting chance. But it's strange that their reunion didn't last very long. I mean, Billy and Mac did eventually get back together, but it didn't last very long. Mac decided that she wanted to become a surrogate for Lily and Kane's twins because Lily had, I believe she had ovarian cancer, I think, and they had frozen her eggs and they needed a surrogate in order to have the children, and Mac decided she wanted to be the one, and Billy was not having it. I mean, that argument that we saw at between Billy and Kane at Catherine's wedding, yeah, Billy and Kane have been feuding for years, and Billy certainly didn't want his precious Mackenzie surrogate carrying his enemy's child. Also, the sparks weren't quite there between new Mac and new Billy, as I recall. But it's interesting how our series of episodes for the week had Billy and his marriage to Chloe starting in 2008, and then we ended up with Billy trying to get back together with Mac in 2009. So I was really shocked to see how we were able to watch Billy and Chloe's marriage take a little bit of a course there. I mean, he was trying to get back together with Mac in 2009 while he was still married to Chloe. I mean, he was still going through with the marriage to Chloe at that time. And the moment when Chloe walked up and saw Billy kissing Mac, and then Chloe walked up and kissed the spot on his cheek where Mac had slapped him for it. Oh, wow, wow, wow. And then she just led him home, back to their passionless marriage. Oh, my. Oh, that was heartfelt. Oh, and that was just bittersweet. Bittersweet. I mean, even at Billy and Chloe's wedding, I think there were more sparks between Katherine and Jill, though, between the bride and groom. The epic cake fight was nice to see in full. We've seen clips and flashbacks of Katherine and Jill having the cake fight 100 separate times, but I really appreciated seeing that full episode to get a better sense of everything that led up to it. Jill looked so hurt. And Katherine, too. Me three. Jill's feelings of abandonment over learning that Katherine wasn't her mother at all, those feelings carried over into Katherine and Murphy's wedding episode the following year. I mean, Jill was drunk and she was acting out and she was desperately seeking Katherine's attention at her wedding to Murphy. And when Jill couldn't get Katherine's attention, she tried for the attention of the bartender as she slipped him her room key at the end of that episode. I mean, Jill found out that Katherine wasn't her mother at Billy and Chloe's wedding in 2008, and she was still so upset about it at Katherine and Murphy's wedding in 2009. I mean, Jill was just so desperate for attention. I mean, to get Katherine's attention. I think Jill wanted that love. It filled something in her somehow, and she still wanted it. Nina had to tie her up and lock her in a closet to make Jill stop making a spectacle of herself, to make Jill stop making it all about her. But at the same time, I can empathize with Jill because I understand what led up to it. I think Jill wanted to feel important enough to Katherine, or to anybody, or to not be abandoned. You know, I get it. I get it. I loved Katherine and Jill as mother and daughter, and I specifically remember being so upset when those test results came in that undid it all. Katherine and Jill being mother and daughter forced them to love each other, even though they didn't like each other. And there was something about that was always so compelling to me. And when that twist was untied, then, you know, it just created more bitterness to bind them for years and years to come. at Katherine and Murphy's wedding, Paul was getting those familiar vibes from the woman that Jack was there with, Mary Jane Benson, because it was actually Paul's sister, Patty Williams, after she had plastic surgery. Paul has a long history of dealing with troubled women. I think that Paul and Victor and Nathan's plan to save Cassandra from Adrienne's murder plot, it made an interesting subplot to the Katherine and Marge episode. And actually, I was glad that Doug Davidson did an intro to that episode. Paul had been involved with Cassandra. He was deeply entangled in her story, and we had just been talking about Paul being missing. Like, where's Doug Davidson? And then boom, there he was. He showed up on our screen looking like he was in his home, and he was dressed very nicely, and he had a portrait of him and Gene Cooper in the background on his table. I thought it was a nice little presentation that he obviously put together, or had put together, for filming his intro and exit of the story. But anyway, at the point of the story that we were seeing in that Cassandra Adrienne episode, Cassandra Rawlins was presumed to have killed her very wealthy husband, George Rawlins, but Victor and Paul had discovered that it was actually Adrienne, the other guy, the bad-looking guy, and Adrienne was trying to convince Cassandra to marry him so that he could kill her and get her fortune that was willed to her by the wealthy husband, George. So, under the headline of weird, I really, really was excited to tell you guys what happened next in this story, okay? So, at the end of the episode that we saw, Cassandra was agreeing to marry Adrienne. Well, after that, after she agreed to marry him, he ended up, get this, drugging her, tying her to a chair, and then rigging a gun with melted ice that was supposed to fire at her at a designated time. He then left the premises to create his alibi. He kind of went to another location, and Cassandra was rescued by Team Williams because they were onto the whole plot. But just to repeat, Adrienne's plan, he rigged a gun with melting ice to fire at her to kill her. Soaps used to be way weirder. All right. And just a side note of interest from me, Cassandra was no angel. She was no angel before that, and she was no angel after that. Cassandra had later drugged and married Brad Carlton. And when she was hit by a car in '91, it actually ended up being Brad who inherited all of her money, all of the George Rawlins fortune, including that house that we saw Cassandra and Adrienne in during that episode. Brad lived in that house until the day he died. I also thought that the marrying someone to kill them for their money story was an interesting tie-in to the story that was also being told with Nina and David Kimball. Because while this whole marrying someone to kill them for their money thing was going on with Adrienne and Cassandra, that's pretty much what was going on with Nina and David Kimball in the same episode, right? I mean, David Kimball was planning a similar fate for Nina. He wanted to marry her and kill her for her Chancellor fortune. The look on David's face when Danny showed up at the door, it said to me, I am totally going to dress up like a wolf and try to kill you next year. Oh, I mean, it was only the next following year that happened. I'm going to dress up like a wolf and kill that guy. Well, he's also dressed up like a wolf. Soaps used to be way weirder. That's the takeaway. Hey, how about Danny's earring? Remember that? Oh boy, guys don't wear earrings anymore, do they? And it was just one earring, I believe, on the left, not the right. Oh Lord, not the right. Fashion trends. Did you get a load of that apartment too? Must have been Nina and Cricket's little 1980s pad. There was nothing more 1980s than that big old round cutout in the wall. Oh my goodness. Danny and Cricket were so cute though, weren't they? Even in just the one brief day. He was coming back from his tour to see her, and she was so happy to see him, and they both just looked so sweet. They were totally Tiger Beach. And I think that's probably part of the reason why Phyllis just annoyed me so much. Because can you even imagine Phyllis and her octopusy cat ways coming in between all that cuteness between Danny and Cricket on a daily basis? Wasn't it interesting to see the two sides of Phyllis? 2 weeks in a row, we had all this Phyllis. We went from octopusy Phyllis in 1996 to the softer, obviously has more money, more glamorous, yet still completely crazy version of Phyllis that we got in 2004, and then again in 2008. It was 2004 where she was bringing Daniel's birth story full circle, and she was telling him the truth about his biological father, but she was telling her side of the whole story. She was presenting it as if she was the unfortunate young unwed mother. You know, she got pregnant, but she and Danny were so in love that she just decided to let him think that he was Daniel's father because he would have been a good father to her son and the other man wouldn't have been. And the evil Christine was the one who ruined it all. She was the one who convinced Danny to have Phyllis declared an unfit mother, and then that's what drove Danny and Daniel away. That's what drove Danny to go to Europe and take the kid with him for most of his off-screen life. Yeah, not accurate. I mean, I imagine it's accurate from her point of view because she's nuts. But Danny's side of the story was quite a bit different and connected with me quite a bit more. Daniel confronted Danny with so much anger and betrayal when he found all of this out. I mean, I don't know why he decided that he was mad at his dad about all of this. I guess Phyllis was just that convincing to him. But I could really see and feel the conflict from Danny about the whole thing. Like, his son's coming to him saying, "Why didn't you tell me all this?" And, you know, accusing Danny of being the bad guy. And I think Danny wanted to defend himself, but he loved his son so much he didn't want to tell him what a horrible mother he has, which is not how Phyllis felt about it. Phyllis had no problem laying all of this on Daniel, come what may. But it forced Danny's hand. I mean, Danny stood there and told Daniel the real truth, all about how Phyllis drugged him and slept with him and told him that the baby was his and then paid to have a paternity test falsified. It was endless, folks. I mean, Phyllis was endlessly scheming to get and then keep Danny, and then she wanted to punish Christine every chance she got along the way, well after she had even won. Yeah, at the time of this episode, Daniel was happily living with Danny and Christine. They were getting ready to get back together. And Christine looked so sleek and so beautiful. I loved those Christine days, like with the long hair, and in the intro she's wearing the black ball gown. Yeah, Christine was looking so good, and I was really feeling Danny. Like, I really liked the looks he had on his face. I kind of like his temperament. I wish we could get Danny back for an episode or two. And Daniel, too. We need to get Daniel back too. He was so hot with Amber. Oh my gosh, at that wedding in 2009, Amber, she was wearing like that rockabilly, I don't know, little like dress. Oh, she was just giving me like a, what was it, 50s vibe. Oh, I just loved Amber. I loved Amber. I don't know why we don't have her on the show. I don't know why we don't have Daniel on the show. They were super hot together. And even in 2004, Daniel was a beautiful boy. I mean, he would have had to have been a model, right? I mean, he was just so gorgeous. In 2004, though, Daniel would have just been about ready to meet a young Lily. Oh, young, rebellious Lily with her cute little rebel nose ring, hanging out with rebel Devon. And Daniel was about to join that little teen angst bunch, partying and drinking. I mean, Daniel would get drunk and he would pass out and he would play an unwitting role in Cassie's death the following year from the episode that we saw with the paternity reveal. And that sent he and Lily on the run, and that caused Phyllis and Nick to bond for the first time as they were hunting the kids down. I'll tell you what, Summer has no idea how lucky she is that Phyllis didn't have to trap Nick with a pregnancy. That one happened all natural. I was so pleased to see Brighton James introduce part 1 of Katherines Intervention episode because of all of the sub-stories that we saw this week that had nothing to do with Katherine. I think I was most captivated by Drucilla and Devon's argument at the rec center. Oh, Devon was so young and he had all that cute curly hair and he was so bitter and so rebellious, and I know he felt so alone in the world at that time. I mean, Devon was brand new to the show during that episode. He had come onto the show maybe 1 month prior, and look at him now. I mean, look at this 16-year transformation. Oh my goodness. It was the same transformation that Drucilla had. And I connected in so hard with the lecture that she was giving to Devon. I don't know who wrote that speech, but they do not write speeches like that today. Devon was accusing Drucilla of coming down on him because she's just some lucky rich lady and her rolling up in her fancy car. And yeah, I know, Lily told me that you came from the streets too. But you just got lucky. I mean, Devon had no idea how much Drew's story would end up paralleling his own. But I mean, when he said that she was just like she was just one of the ones who got lucky, and then Drew came back on him and said, "Oh, you think I was lucky? Well, let me tell you, luck is a lot of hard work. I scratched and I clawed my way up for every dime that I have, and so did my husband, and so can you." Luck is a lot of hard work. Man, I mean, boom, boom, truth bomb right there. It was such an inspirational speech, and it had such a tough love and a realism about it, and you just don't see that today. I mean, I'm not saying that soaps were better then. They're better, that they were better then. I think that soaps are different now. But I think what it is that I'm just kind of appreciating Victoria Rahl. I mean, maybe even more since Christoph has passed away. I don't know. But we got to remember that this was Victoria Rahl's story. She wanted to do a foster kid storyline. So this was something that was really, really close to her heart, and I think you could feel it in her performances. I mean, today on Y&R, when they try to give us a story with a message, a lot of the times it's half-assed and it's quick. But this was something that it was so all-encompassing, and it was such a strong story, and I'm wondering now how much Victoria Rahl played a part in it. I mean, Drucilla taking on Devon and mentoring him as she was mentored, and then bringing Devon into her home despite her husband Neil's objection, and then adopting Devon and treating him like no less than a son, becoming his mother. I mean, there was like a message in there that was heartfelt, and it was real, and it was real well delivered too. I mean, that journey did not take place in 2 weeks. They didn't just like bing bang boom, we're going to do a foster kid storyline and move on. No, it took years to lay the groundwork of that Winters family dynamic. And now here we are today, come full circle, with Devon as the head of that family. Boop, 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 boop. And now it's time for Miguel Watch 2020. I know you guys are speculating why I'm so obsessed with Miguel, and I don't know. But I would just like to note that Miguel has been in each week of our classic episodes. I mean, since they started airing the classics, Miguel has been in all of them. Maybe it's just because he was always there, and then one day he was not. And then I can't help but wonder, like, where'd Miguel go? For someone who was there so much to just be gone, I mean, I don't know. He was in the Katherine and Marge episode in 1990. He was answering Jack's phone call, letting Jack know that Nikki's not home. Nikki's never home. I got news for you. Nikki's never home. That was like 90% of Miguel's purpose, apparently. To answer the phone and let everybody know that Nikki's not there. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Newman. Mrs. Abbott is not home. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Abbott. Mrs. Newman is not home. I could see why the actor might have been getting a little tired of the monotony. Oh. By the way, in 1990, yes, I noticed that the ranch walls were not pink. I always associate the ranch with those pink walls. And I think that Gary mentioned to me a couple of weeks ago that he was remembering them as gray at a point. And I blew it off like, no, the ranch is always pink. It's pink. I'll not be questioned on my memory of the color of the ranch. Thank you. But then there they were, Gary, right there. Gray and boring. Oh, no, I like the pink better. I choose to still remember it as pink. Pink was very 80s and 90s. They must have painted it right after that. Well, Jack was calling Nikki as part of his grand plan to get Jabot back. There was always a plan to get Jabot back in those days. John was in the hospital after having a heart attack when Jack took Jabot public and Victor ended up buying up the company. Although I think Jack did clearly have some real feelings for Nikki. I think this was also in the period of time when Victor was offering to give Jabot back to the Abbotts if Jack would return Nikki to Victor. Just give her back, you know. This is my woman. Give her back and I'll place her here on my shelf. Ugh, gross. And also gross, Victor did not make good on that promise. So Jack went ahead and married Nikki anyway. Married her for love and as a bonus, married her for spite. Pluck out any year of Y&R. Spin the wheel, pick a year of Y&R, and Jack and Victor are probably feuding. Because also, in 2004, Victor had made Jabot an investment offer of $75 million, but with one painful stipulation: Jack Abbott has got to go. I'm going to give you more money than you know what to do with, but Jack Abbott has got to go. I think that was a great twist. It was a great twist. It was a twist of a knife right into Jack's back. The look on Jack's face when he realized that Ashley and Brad, who apparently were, I believe, they were together at the time, that Jack was realizing that they were considering taking the offer. It was obvious that John didn't want to do that. John was in the terrible position of feeling like he had to choose his son or his company, or, you know, I mean, there's all these people that are employed, and it's, you know, major ramifications if the company goes down, but I think Jack just took one look at his father and knew that that decision was going to be impossible for him to make, choosing to let the company fail or letting Jack walk out the door. And so Jack just decided to lovingly take that decision out of his father's hands, and he resigned. Those were good scenes. I mean, very tender between Jack and John. That dialogue was well written and it was well delivered. When Jack asked John if he could just let him be successful at one thing today, can I get a smile? And then John just said, here, and just kind of gave him a small smile. I mean, that was magic. That was some magic right there. Oh man. They just don't write them like they used to, right? And then Jack packed up his desk and walked out. And he was on his way out down the elevator, promising that he would be back someday. And oh, that would be true. Jack would come and go and come and go and come and go and come and go from Jabot for the next decade or more to come. We've talked a couple of weeks in a row about what a sicko villain David Kimball was, but Cameron Kirsten comes pretty close, in my opinion, to living up to that level of disgustingness. The story of Sharon and Cameron Kirsten was a pretty dark one. Sharon got drunk in a bar in Denver and had a one-night stand with this Cameron Kirsten. And immediately after they had sex, Cameron started to beat her. Just like he was brutally abusing her. And it was so unexpected and so awful, and it just came out of nowhere. And then a year went by before Cameron showed up in Genoa City, and he was threatening Sharon that he would tell Nick everything that happened between them, as if Sharon was the villain here and not the victim. And Cameron went on with this emotional blackmail with Sharon. He coerced her into meeting him again at a hotel room. He tried to make the moves on her as if she wanted it, as if they had a great time in Denver. And then when that didn't work, he tried to hurt her again. Awful. Awful man. And Sharon, in this hotel meeting, decided she needed to defend her life. So she grabbed a champagne bottle, whacked him over the head with it. He went down. She thought that he was dead, but actually he was just unconscious. And he spent the next few months pretending to be dead, haunting and taunting her. And then he had Frank Barrett, Cassie and Mariah's biological father, he had him murdered just so that he could pin it all on Sharon. At the point of the story that we saw, Nick was hip to most of the story, and he was confronting Cameron to try to get some info out of him that would help Sharon. And Sharon was at the same time trying to convince Grace to give her some info. Grace had become involved with him, but I don't think that Grace knew exactly what Cameron was doing. I don't think she was deeply involved in his plotting. I could be wrong about that, but Grace was bad, but most of the time she was just mostly badly wanting Nick. I mean, back in the day, I felt about Grace the same way that I felt about Phyllis. It was just scheme after scheme to get the guy, and it was exhausting. But Sharon was about to experience a whole extra level of hell when the police connected Frank's body to her. And Sharon eventually became so desperate and so hopeless over the pending murder charges that she actually agreed to let Cameron take her away out of town and out of the country to one of his private islands. She was going to just let him take her away forever to escape prosecution. She got on the plane with him. But don't worry, Nick showed up on the private jet just in time. He punched Cameron to within about an inch of his life and then strapped parachutes on all three of them and parachuted his way to the cops to tell them the whole story. Whoever said that Nick wasn't capable of problem solving? Oh, wait, that was me. You know, Y&R Chat was well established on YouTube during the time of Katherine and Murphy's wedding, so you could conceivably go back and watch those Y&R Chats from all that time ago, although I won't. I will not do that. I cannot stand to look at myself. I wonder if it's hard for the actors and actresses to see their old episodes, because it's ugh. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you think you look at the time, and I didn't think that I looked good at the time, but I was right to, because ew. But when Ashley and Nikki and Victor were all talking about Sabrina's death and about Ashley being haunted, I remembered chatting about that storyline like 2 houses ago. And guess what? You'll never believe it. It was Adam! It was Adam all along! Adam was gaslighting Ashley. Adam was spooking Ashley into thinking that Sabrina was haunting her. And it was Adam who spooked Ashley so bad that she fell down the stairs and miscarried that baby that she was pregnant with at Murphy and Katherine's wedding. And then Adam decided to steal Sharon's baby, Faith. The child that she was just pregnant with at the time of Billy and Chloe's wedding. And Adam just decided to give that baby to Ashley and make Sharon think that she was the one who miscarried. But it's so hard to stay mad at Adam. He's so sexy. Let's just forget about that. Let's just forget about how he stole Sharon's baby, gave it to Ashley, and then made Sharon think that she miscarried. Let's forget about that. It's too unpleasant to think about. Yes, at the tail end of Katherine and Murphy's wedding episode, Eileen Davidson was there to also tease us on next week's theme. It is going to be a tribute to a power couple, and that power couple is Nikki and Victor. I have to admit, I was not thrilled about this announcement. Even though I'm a Nikki and Victor fan, I just feel like I've been enjoying way more the deeper dives. Like, I want to see the more obscure storylines. I want to see the stuff that, I haven't even thought about that from forever. Or I haven't thought about that character in forever. I like going deeper into the Y&R history. And, I don't know, seeing a Victor and Nikki theme week feels a little predictable to me, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if they play that wedding episode one more time, I think I might scream, because it has aired for me twice within the past year, and I don't need to see it again. I feel like if I see that episode too much, it's not going to feel special anymore. But then I realize I am not the target market here. I'm in the minority here. Most Y&R fans, I don't think, watch every single day, rain or shine, for nearly 30 years. And then turn around and do a video podcast about it for 12 years straight. I think most fans are just far more casual. I think most people probably pick up episodes where and when they can. So a Nikki and Victor theme week is probably exactly what they'd like to see. And Nikki and Victor, the most famous couple on the show. So hey, you know what? If even one person gets good vibes and maybe picks up watching the show on a more regular basis, then I will happily sit back and watch that wedding episode again. I guess. We'll see. I mean, maybe it will be 5 wedding episodes. Surely Nikki and Victor have had 5 separate weddings. At least one per decade. Wouldn't that be funny? If next week it's just 5 episodes and 5 Nikki and Victor weddings. Ha! Last week's Who Said It quote turned out to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Here's the quote from last week. Just raw, sheer brain power. It was the last quote from our new episodes. And it was Kevin who said it. Kevin was at the baby shower talking about how he wanted his academic abilities to be passed along to his son. It was his raw, sheer brain power that he wanted his child to have. A lot of people thought it was Theo, and that was a logical guess. It just so happened to be a wrong guess. Only Henry, Ambreen, and Victoria guessed that it was Kevin. Well done, Henry, Ambreen, and Victoria. Wow. Only 3 winners got it right. Well, let's see what happens with this week's quote. Here it is. If you can't lick 'em, you join 'em. Who said it? If you can't lick 'em, you join 'em. Go to yrchat.com if you'd like to leave your guess. And if you get it right, then I will give you your shout out on next week's Y&R Chat. All right, how about we read some of your comments, starting out with the legendary Henry, who says, I truly hate that Y&R is down at the present for current shows, Bold and the Beautiful as well. This really sucks to the 10th power. However, I will continue to nail it regarding the weekly quotes. I have a perfect record, as you know. Yes, Henry. I don't know what I would do if you ever didn't get the quote right. I would probably cover it up. I would probably have some kind of conspiracy to keep your perfect record. I would not want to in any way disassemble the illusion of perfection from your Who Said It quote streak. But it probably is going to be harder with the classic episodes, isn't it? Because a lot of times I think you can probably, at least sort of fairly guess, I mean, not saying you are. I imagine you just have a photographic memory. But I imagine that with some of the quotes, you can maybe sort of take some context and figure it out. But with the classic episodes, I think it's going to be harder. But we'll see. We'll see. Oh, last week I asked you guys a poll question, which I now need to find the answer to. Okay, so the poll question was, will you be watching Y&R's re-airing of these classic episodes? Hey, this is pretty good. 80% of you said that you're going to watch as many of the classics as you can, with 20% saying, nah, I'm just not really interested. I think it's fair if you're not interested in the classics. I mean, there's definitely just something about the newness and the freshness and just knowing that it's sort of happening and everybody's experiencing it at the same time. That's very appealing as far as the new episodes. But I don't know, I'm really loving the classics. Just to me, I love the throwback. I love the nostalgia. I love the opportunity to go back in and research what was going on at that time. I'm really hoping that our current writers are watching these episodes. I hope they're sitting at home watching these episodes, because I'm not saying that soaps are better than or in any way. I mean, I think it's apples and oranges in a lot of ways, but I think there are some cues that our current writers could potentially take from watching these classic episodes, and I hope they do. Well, about the poll, Victoria voted yes to these classic episodes, saying, I wasn't sure if my attention would be captured by characters that I'm not familiar with. But what surprises me is the writing. It is so tight. All of the dialogue pushes the plot forward. In current time, I don't always sense that things happen for a reason. Yes, Victoria, that is totally it. It's like the dialogue was very plot. It was either plot or character driven. There was a purpose. It was focused. And yeah, I agree that a lot of the times now it's like you don't really know if that's going to pan out to be anything, or if it's meant to throw you off of something, or if it's just there as filler. But that is not how it was before. As you say, it was tight. I do kind of miss that. I do feel like the writing was different and maybe a little more what my preference would be. Maybe some things are better, some things are not better, who knows. Well, Leslie says, after commenting last week that I found out how to find the classic episodes, I can't find any of them for this week. I tried Roku, CBS.com online, and on the iPhone CBS app. None of them have worked for me. I still can change the season or scroll down to see the classic episodes from the prior weeks, but none of them that aired this week. How are you all finding them? I did not realize, Leslie, that they stopped posting the classics at CBS.com. Why are they doing that? Why can they not get them up on the website? And if they are going to get them up on the website, hopefully they will, why do they make them so hard to find? So Anne Breen responded to you, Leslie, and said to check YouTube, Daily Motion, and Young and the Restless blog. The quality isn't HD, but it's better than nothing. Yeah, I think Young and the Restless blog is the one that I did see had full episodes of whatever the airing is. So, I mean, YouTube, they tend to probably try to pull that down pretty quickly. But Daily Motion, I haven't checked. Young and the Restless blog, though, I know they do have full episodes there. It's really surprising. I mean, I would think they would pop those up on CBS.com and let people watch them. I don't know. Do people not DVR or anything anymore? I don't know. I have my recorder box. It records over the air TV because I don't have, cable at all. So it just records it as it's playing. Like an old VCR. Basically what I have is a digital VCR. But can you DVR them? I don't know. But I mean, maybe even YouTube might have them. I'm not sure. I hope that you do get to watch them. My goodness. And if not, hopefully Y&R Chat is at least going to be a good connection point for you. I'm doing my best. I'm definitely trying to put in that extra research to let you guys know the backstory on some of the storylines that were going on at the time. And I've been enjoying watching them, so I sure hope you get to find them somehow. Kim says, I grew up watching The Young and the Restless, and I'm 52 years old. And I just want to make the comment that I love the oldies. How about releasing them on a CD so we can buy and binge watch? I will find episodes on YouTube to watch, but you can't watch full episodes, and I have to watch it on my little phone. Oh, I didn't even think about that, Kim, that a lot of people probably don't have, I have a massive 17-inch laptop because I like to watch stuff on it since I don't have cable. So I didn't think about the fact that most people probably don't even have laptops or PCs anymore, and you're watching it on a little screen, and that's not real satisfying. So, Diana responded to you, Kim, and said that she's found a great YouTube channel where you can find many more Y&R classics. They're the full episodes. The YouTube channel is called Bugs Bunny Cat. And if you click on the videos at the top of the page, you'll see a full list of them all. And they go back as far as 1984, when Brenda Dixon played Jill. Oh, okay, so here it is again. Bugs Bunny Cat on YouTube. Gosh, I hope that the episodes don't end up getting pulled, because YouTube, they don't last long. But then, I mean, I don't know. Maybe right now they're not doing as much monitoring. I'm not sure, but I will have to check that out, as if I have any time to watch anything else. But I agree with Kim. I am really enjoying the episodes. Can you imagine how massive of a CD collection it would have to be to release some episodes on CD? Y&R just doesn't do that. They really don't do a whole lot of bonus material. But that's why I would think it would be something they would want to get up on CBS.com. If they put a bunch of classic, full, good quality episodes up on CBS.com, I would probably consider a CBS All Access subscription. I would think about it. I'd think long and hard. It would be tempting for me. CDs are probably what would not happen, but yeah, I could see. I mean, it would be nice to be able to pop in a DVD and watch some old apps, but I have to say I am very happy with what we've gotten so far. I can't complain. Not too much anyway. Well, let's talk about these paternity and maternity switches that we saw this week, Superplex says, how many times do paternity tests come up wrong? You would think that people would learn their lessons the first time. Yes, I mean, we had, what did I say, 19 years, a span of 19 years of episodes in this 5-day week, and there were 2 paternity/maternity storylines. We had Daniel's paternity coming to surface and Jill's maternity coming to surface. It is very much a soap opera theme, and they never learn their lessons, not ever. Daisy says about Daniel's paternity, I'd forgotten how horrible that I thought Phyllis was when she deliberately hurt her son to hurt Danny. Phyllis is pretty much the same to me. She's very self-absorbed at all times. This is who she is. Oh, I love this comment, Daisy, because at the last week and even this week I was talking about, oh, how different Phyllis is. But you make a good point. Maybe at the end of the day she's not that different at all. Self-absorbed. I can't argue with that. Gary says about Jill's maternity, I think that what was happening with Katherine there was that she was being tested to make sure that she wasn't still Marge faking as Katherine. Brock's paperwork-proven sonage to the figure in front of everyone was the frosting on the cake. Let them eat cake, in proving that K was truly K. Yes, I think that is it, Gary. The whole reason that they were doing that paternity test with Brock was to prove that it was actually Katherine, and in the process they ended up proving that Katherine wasn't Jill's mother, because I guess if Katherine and Brock were a match, then that means that Jill, no, I don't know, I can't remember, it's muddy, but I know that's the reason why they were doing the paternity test. Gary also says Esther must have gotten fired or quit under the rule of her demanding, mean employer, Marge, and now she's back. No, let's see. No, Marge hadn't taken over the mansion at that point, but I don't know. Yeah, there was who was running the house when Katherine was gone? I'm not sure. Maybe Esther just lost her job because Katherine was presumed dead? And maybe when Katherine came back, she bought her a brand new spiffy maid's uniform. And that was what that scene was about. But yeah, I saw a lot of love for Esther this week. And Gary, you also left this comment saying, you know who is really persona non grata and completely ignored? Mamie. She actually had more household input than Miguel. And she wasn't afraid to get haughty with Jill, even going so far at one point as to try to claim John Abbott for herself. Welcome to the big time. Wow. Yeah, I mean, we've had a discussion the past couple of weeks about the service staff in our homes, and I'm always going on about Miguel, and I know there was a lot of Esther love this week, but yeah, Mamie gets she doesn't get a lot of attention these days, but she was there. She was in the opening credits. I don't think Miguel was in the opening credits that I remember. Esther certainly was, but yeah, Mamie had a role. She was involved. She was in love with John. She also was, importantly, the bridge to bringing Drucilla onto the show. Drucilla, as we saw in that flashback scene, was Mamie's niece, and yes, so she was coming into town to get a little money from her aunt, or to ask for money. Yeah. It's so interesting too that nobody really talks that much about Mamie these days. You would think maybe Lily might mention her occasionally. Do we know the status of Mamie? Where is she? These are the questions. See, this is why I like the deeper dives, and I'm not always good and right and accurate about everything. I can't remember a lot of this, and it takes a lot of research to actually get to some of the answers, but I think that's part of what I'm enjoying most about the classic episodes, because, you know, on a weekly basis, I can come up here and just talk about storylines, and it's mostly just opinion. I don't have to try real hard to research storylines, but this is an opportunity to actually dig back into the vault out and see what was going on at that time and to jog my memory and to, I don't know, look a little deeper into some things that have fallen away over the years. So that's what I'm like in the classics. Diana says, you can definitely notice that Y&R used to spend a lot more on the sets back in the day. It was nice to see the characters' bedrooms and not just the hallway. Even when we do see a character's bedroom now, you often only see the bed and nothing else. I liked that we saw the characters at home and work more often and not mostly in coffee shops and hotels. Also, the older storylines seemed to be more interesting. It appears the majority of fans feel this way as I was reading people's comments on Facebook. Better sets, better storylines overall. Yeah, you know what? I know we saw Chloe getting ready in what was called Grandma's old bedroom. So, I don't know, was that presumably Jill's old bedroom? I don't know, but it was nice to see the bedroom and the hallway outside the bedroom. And also, did you see Catherine's backyard wedding set? That was quite a large set, too. But yeah, I always prefer to be in the homes. I like the coffee shop, and the hotel and the restaurant is fine, but I really miss the homes. You know, I think that the restaurants and coffee shops and the hotels, they all have their place because those are great places where characters who wouldn't normally intermingle, they can kind of come together and, you know, interact a little bit. And that's always enjoyable to see. But yeah, I don't know, is it a shift in culture? Do people spend more time now in restaurants and hotel lobbies as opposed to in the homes? Well, I mean, specifically like right now in time, like within the last month, I think we're spending a whole lot more time at home and not in restaurants and hotels. But I mean, let's leave that aside. Was that a shift in the culture more than a shift in the show? I don't know. But yeah, the old storylines. I'll tell you who, I think, Henry had mentioned Bold and the Beautiful earlier. I think that Bold and the Beautiful does a pretty darn good job with their storylines, not gonna lie. And it's a Bell that's writing them. Is it Bill Bell Jr. that writes that show? And I feel like he does a good job of embracing the Bell essence. Is anybody watching the Bold and the Beautiful classic episodes? I saw one. I tuned into one, and it didn't seem that old to me. I mean, it was maybe only 5 years old. I was wishing maybe they'd do some deeper dives. I'll have to check into that, because I'd love to see some, like, Stephanie and Sally Spectra. That'd be pretty good. There's just so much. Well, you know, we haven't had a poll for this week yet. So why don't I give you one now? So I'm looking at Katherine all week long, and I'm thinking to myself, she looks good. You know, she's made some interesting fashion choices over the years, and you know I was really, really drawn into her rainbow sorbet caftan. So I thought, why don't we do a little poll about the Kathryn Chancellor fashion moments for the week. We always seem to enjoy that topic. So why don't we do a poll and you guys can let me know what your favorite Kathryn Chancellor fashion moment of the past week was. We have a couple of really good candidates. Of course, we have the Rainbow Sorbet Intervention Caftan. Excuse me, I just had a coughing fit due to laughter. I'll cut that out. We also have Katherine's golden brown cake fight blazer, which is very beautiful and very sparkly. That's probably, it's going to be a hard time for me voting this week because I really love the rainbow sorbet, but I also really love that golden brown blazer. You know, I love brown. Week after week, brown, brown, brown for me. But we also had the lace wedding jacket. Now, Katherine did look very beautiful on her wedding day, and also a dark horse candidate here. Did you see the wedding night blue boudoir robe that she had on in the bedroom with Murphy at the end of the episode? That was beautiful, and she looked very good in that blue. Those are your 4 choices for a poll this week. Rainbow sorbet, golden brown cake fight blazer, lace wedding jacket, or the wedding night blue boudoir robe. YRChat.com. That's where you can weigh in on Katherine's fashion. And here's some other fashion notes from Ellen saying that Nikki looked gorgeous with her hair swept back and in that blue headband at Katherine's sad party. Yes, there was a whole lot of Nikki fashion moments in there too. Overall, I'm watching the new episodes and looking at everybody, and seeing how much they've changed. I mean, Kevin comes to mind. Boy, he's changed so much. Michael's changed a bit. Victor, Nikki, Paul. Jack looks a lot the same. I'm not gonna lie, he looks a lot the same. But just looking at all these characters, Lauren. I mean, everybody looks so different today, but it seemed like the overall trend was that everybody looks older but thinner. What's that all about? How do you get older and thinner? Aren't you supposed to gain weight as you get older? How does that? I mean, it's kind of like mostly everybody kind of looks better. I mean, there are definitely some exceptions, but there were a lot of people where I went, wow, they look better today. But yeah, I like that Ellen mentioned Nikki having a whole lot of fashion moments. And if we are getting a whole week next week of Victor and Nikki romance, that might have to be the poll for next week. We are going to have a whole lot of Nikki fashion moments next week. Okay, everybody, I'm really excited. Actually, this is probably the happiest I've ever been to end Y&R Chat because I am leaving the house today. For the first time in 49 days, I am leaving the house. I am going to see my parents, and we're going to be very responsible about it, I promise. The area that I'm in has had a very low case count, and everybody in my family is very aware, and we're going to be socially distanced, but I haven't seen my mom and dad in 49 days, and I miss them. I am so excited to see them. This is just going to be like the best family reunion ever. And also, I'm just I need to get out of the house. I've been trapped inside with a toddler for 49 days. Let me tell you. 49 days, one toddler, there may only be one sole survivor. And she needs to get out too. I feel so just guilty that all of this has happened at a time when my daughter is actually getting to the stage where she can get out and she can behave in public, and there's so much in the world for her to see and experience. And it was like she was just hitting that stage when the lockdown and everything happened, and I feel so guilty that she's getting robbed of those experiences. But I also know there are so many people out there that are missing graduations and other events and things that are so important. But I have done my part, man. I have stayed in. I haven't moved them. Well, I've moved muscles, but I've not moved them off the street. So yeah, I'm really excited to see my family today. I hope that you guys are hopefully going to be able to see some of your families soon if you haven't already. But I do want everybody to continue to stay safe. I promise you that that I'm leaving, but I'm leaving very responsibly. Things are opening back up though here. Just as of May 1st, non-essential businesses open back up, and still can't eat in a restaurant, but you can do carry out still and all that. So I think little by little things are kind of getting back to new normal, I guess maybe is a way to say it. And I'm sure that the Y&R execs are planning their path back. They still haven't heard anything about it, but I really bet you they're going to go in, they're going to bang out some episodes, and they're not going to bank them. I think they're probably going to, even if it's like like 3 new episodes a week and 2 classics, I don't think they're going to film for 4 to 6 weeks just so that they can keep 4 to 6 weeks in the can. I think they're maybe going to stay 2 weeks ahead for now and then just work overtime to try to build back up that bank over time. That's my guess. I don't know anything for sure, but hopefully they are figuring out the ways that they can safely return to production and safely return us to our new episodes. Although in the meantime, I'm enjoying the classics. I hope you're enjoying the classics. I hope you feel free to go to yrchat.com to leave your comments about the shows. If you have questions about the storylines, leave them there. There's a lot of people still jumping in and who have a lot of knowledge to share far beyond what I have in my almost 30 years of watching. And you know, thank goodness we have the internet. There's so much research that we can do to fill in those blanks too. So go to yrchat.com, leave your comments and your questions, vote in the poll, see all of my funny screen caps. It was a Katherine-centric week, so I made sure to have 5 screen caps of Katherine, one from each episode, and I think some of them are pretty funny, if I do say so myself. Oh, I will see you back here next week after we've had our week of Nikki and Victor. Okay, everybody, have a good one. I love you. Bye.